Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Overland Blueprint. I'm glad you're here. My name's Tom, and today I have a 5th Gen 4runner. We're doing a suspension lift install. It's going to be a really good how-to video for you guys. Nice step-by-step instructions. If you guys have any questions at any point though, please drop me a comment down low. I'll get back to you and be more than happy to answer it. All right, let's go jump into that video. All right, so first things first, lift the vehicle safely. Not everyone's going to have a lift. That's okay. But make the decision. You're either going to work on the front of the vehicle or the rear of the vehicle. Pick one or the other and just ultimately be safe, be smart, understand the lift points of the vehicle and understand how to lift it safely, because at the end of the day, we just want to be safe. All right, now we're going to loosen the 2 eccentrics. Then we're going to remove the 2 lower ball joint bolts here. And then finally, for the front strut, we're going to remove that lower bolt, allowing the whole control arm to swing down. When removing the bolt at the bottom of your strut, keep in mind that there's a washer there. Keep track of that washer. I suggest putting it back together like I am doing here. Once that's all complete, this lower control arm is going to swing down, and then we're going to go over to the other side and repeat the steps. Alright, so up here we have 3 14mm nuts. We're just going to remove all those, and once we do that, this whole assembly is just going to drop right out the bottom. Just be careful that when you remove the last nut, it doesn't fall out. Now we're moving on to a full strut assembly. It's pretty straightforward. Just keep in mind if it's left hand or right hand specific. Also, use red Loctite at the 3 studs at the top before you put the nuts on. Even though we're going to torque everything to specifications, it's an added level of security for peace of mind while you're on the trail. Now we're going to torque everything to 53 foot-pounds, as specified by Toyota. Disclaimer: if the instructions for your lift specify something differently, use that number. Now just repeat everything for the opposite side. Just raise the lower control arm, aligning the lower strut. Install the bolt in the correct orientation, washer and then nut, and then torque everything to 70 foot-pounds. If your manufacturer specifies a different torque specification, use that. Next, we're going to install the 2 bolts for the lower ball joint. The torque for these 2 bolts are going to be 118 foot-pounds. Okay, so now we're going to preliminarily set our camber caster in the front for when we do the alignment. So it's going to be this guy and this eccentric, and same thing on the other side, and get those all set. Sadly, the footage that shows the preliminary adjustments that I made before putting it on the alignment rack was corrupted. What I would suggest doing is just setting those eccentrics right in the center, and then taking it down to your local Toyota dealer and having them aligned. Moving on to rear suspension, we're going to start by removing the shock, unbolting the sway bar end link, and then removing the spring. Keep in mind that there's going to be a wiring harness that's going to hook to your rear axle here that you're going to want to unclip so that way the harness doesn't get damaged. I'll show you that later in this video. Here's that wiring harness that I was telling you about. The factory spring is going to come out really easy at this point. Transfer over the needed components, and then when installing your new spring, get yourself something that you can loop around the axle and pull down on it with, as you see here in the video. That's a big tip that I gotta say made my life really easy. Do that, and then once you get that new spring in, just make sure that it's seated correctly, so when you bring that axle back up, everything's gonna fit properly. this lower shock bolt is 72 foot-pounds. The nut at the top is 18 foot-pounds. Please remember to torque this nut while you're here. I forgot on camera and I had to go back later off camera and torque it. Here we're going to leave this sway bar end link unbolted at this time, and then just double check and make sure that that rear spring we just installed is properly seated. Now we're just going to secure the sway bars on both sides, and then the torque for that nut at the top is 11 foot-pounds. Once that's all complete, re-secure your harness. Now sadly, the remainder of this footage was all corrupted and unrecoverable, but this is how she sits today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and if you have any feedback, drop me a comment. Until next time, my name's Tom, and you've been watching Overland Blueprint. Gear up, get out, go farther.